Welcome or welcome back.
He wasn't just another rich expat chasing dreams in Southeast Asia. No, this man was tired. Tired of being lied to. Tired of being loved for all the wrong reasons. And especially tired of hearing, "I love you" from lips that only ever moved when money was involved. 2 failed marriages behind him. Both ended the same way. Women who once promised forever, walking out with half his assets and none of the guilt. They weren't from poor countries. They were from the West. Educated, independent, and still, when the money slowed, the love vanished. So when someone told him that Filipinas only want foreigners for their money, he didn't flinch. That's not a Filipino thing, he told himself. That's a human thing. But this time he had a plan. He sold a few things, shut down the noise, and booked a one-way flight to the Philippines. No entourage, no Rolex, no designer shoes. Just cargo shorts, a plain shirt, and a backpack that held everything he needed. He arrived in Angeles City and didn't check into a 5-star hotel like the other foreigners. He rented a small studio for cheap. Basic, clean, quiet. He blended in. Every morning he walked to a roadside carinderia where he drank Barako coffee with old men and tired construction workers. He'd sit there, calmly observing, not rushing, not trying to impress anyone. Whenever he went to the market, he haggled. Not because he couldn't afford to overpay, but because he wanted to be treated like anyone else. He always asked for his change, even if it was just 5 Philippine pesos. "How much for the mango?" 80 Philippine pesos. "I'll give 60. It's not even sweet," he'd say with a grin. The locals laughed at him at first, a foreigner who acted more kuripot than the tricycle drivers. But that was exactly the point. He was building a new version of himself. A man who could no longer be bought and who wouldn't allow himself to buy love either. But it was at night, after sunset, that things got interesting. Just a couple of blocks from his apartment was a small local bar. Nothing flashy. Just neon lights, cold beer, and laughter spilling into the street. The kind of place expats and locals shared tables, played pool, and forgot the world for a few hours. That's where he saw her. She wasn't the prettiest girl in the bar, at least not in the flashy way. No heavy makeup, no forced giggles, no short skirts or desperate flirting. She wore jeans and a fitted shirt, simple, clean, and somehow that made her stand out more than any glittery dress could. Every guy in the bar noticed her. None of them touched her. Not like they did with the other bartenders and the ones who let drunk men wrap their arms around them, sit them on laps, or whisper dirty offers. It was the unspoken routine in places like that, but she was different. She poured your beer. She gave your change. And then she moved on. One night, the expat leaned over to a fellow foreigner and asked, "What's her deal?" The guy scoffed. "That one? Don't bother. She's not for sale, bro." Even the local guys who joked with every other girl there avoided making crude passes at her. They respected her, or maybe feared rejection from someone who didn't play their game. So naturally, he became curious. He waited till the bar closed, watched her sling her bag over her shoulder and head out alone. Quiet, focused, no lingering, no drama. The second night, he followed again. And the third night, he finally tried. "Hey," he said, not too close, hands in his pockets, calm voice. "You off work?" She paused, looked him over once. "Yes." "I was wondering if you'd like to talk. Just have some coffee, maybe." She shook her head. "I don't date customers." He chuckled. "I didn't buy anything from you tonight. I just watched you walk out." She almost smiled. Almost. "I have to go. I have school tomorrow." And just like that, she left him standing there, alone again. But that wasn't the end. It took him nearly a week of gentle persistence. He never waited too close, never pressured. Just sat outside with a bottle of water or a cigarette and offered a polite hi when she passed. Until one night, she finally slowed down. "You're still here?" she asked, half annoyed, half curious. He nodded. Still hoping you'll give me 5 minutes. She sighed, checked the time on her phone. Fine, but talk fast. I have to wake up early. They sat on a wooden bench near the corner of the street. No romantic ambiance, no music. Just tricycles passing and the occasional bark of a stray dog. So, she said, what do you want? Honestly, he shrugged. I just wanted to talk to you. You're different from the others. You don't act like them. She glanced sideways. Because I'm not like them. He leaned forward, genuinely curious. How come? She hesitated before answering, then calmly she said, because they drink with the customers. Once you drink, you lose control. You laugh too hard. You say yes when you shouldn't. Some girls do it for the money. Others because they're tired of saying no. I'm just not like that. He didn't respond right away. The honesty, the way she said it, it wasn't rehearsed. It was truth. That's fair, he finally said, and smart. She stood up, brushing off her jeans. Look, I appreciate you not being like the others, but I don't do bar romances. As she turned to leave, he called out, What's your name? She stopped. Clarice. Clarice, he repeated. Nice name. She didn't say thanks. Just walked off into the night, leaving him there again. But this time, with a name to remember. Clarice didn't fall for him overnight. In fact, she made it painfully clear that if he was looking for something quick or cheap, he should keep walking. I don't go home with customers, she said one evening, seated beside him at a quiet coffee stall near her apartment. Not for money, not for gifts, not for sweet words. I'm not looking for a one-night stand, he replied. I've had enough of those to know they don't fill anything. That caught her attention. Over time, the conversations deepened. He told her, in simple terms, that he had been divorced twice, that both women married him for his wealth, and that now he was trying to live life differently. He never told her how much money he had. He never told her about the house he still owned in California or the investments sitting untouched in U.S. banks. To her, he was just John, a simple foreigner living month to month like most retirees. He dressed plain, took jeepneys, drank cheap beer. Clarice liked that, and when she finally agreed to be his girlfriend, it was under one condition: no sleepovers. I don't sleep at a man's house unless I'm his wife, she said. He laughed the first time she said it, thinking it was a joke, but she wasn't joking. You can visit, she said. We can eat together, talk, but when the sun goes down, I go home. That rule never changed. Not after 1 month, not after 6. And somehow, the restraint made everything feel more real, like they were actually building something that wasn't made of lust or alcohol or the need to impress. 1 year later, Clarice walked out of her graduation ceremony holding a college degree in business administration. And John? He stood at the back, smiling like he was the proudest man in the world. The wedding was small, simple, and held in the chapel near Clarice's hometown. A few friends, a few family members. No grandeur, no white limousine. Just 2 people who had taken their time to understand each other. Her father gave a quiet nod of approval. Her siblings smiled, happy for her. But her mother? Not so much. She could have done better, the mother whispered to a relative. Other girls here marry foreigners who bring them cars, dollars, and a house in Manila. And look at this one. He doesn't even own a car. John overheard it. Clarice did too. But neither of them responded. Because John had a plan, and Clarice had already proven she wasn't in this for money. After the wedding, over a modest meal of lechon and pancit, John took Clarice's hand and said, I've been thinking. Maybe we should move to the States. Clarice raised an eyebrow. Why? You could get a job with your degree, something with real pay, better opportunity. We can start fresh. She hesitated at first, But deep down, she knew the kind of life she wanted to build wouldn't come easy in the Philippines. So they applied for the visa, and 3 months later, they landed in California. Not as sugar daddy and bar girl, but as husband and wife. Partners chasing a new life. That's when Clarice discovered the truth. John wasn't poor, not even close. He owned 2 properties, had investments, retirement accounts, and a small business run by a manager. He had just chosen to live humbly, to find someone who would love him without all that. He apologized for not telling her sooner, but Clarice only smiled. "I didn't marry you for your money, and now I have proof. You were broke in my eyes for 1 whole year." In California, life moved fast, but John and Clarice kept their pace slow. She got a job at a local accounting firm within weeks, earning more than she ever imagined. But the real surprise was how she chose to live. No designer bags, no flaunting, no showing off her husband's wealth. When she sent money back home, it was modest, just enough to help her siblings with school and medicine for her father. She didn't tell them John was wealthy. Why? Because Clarice understood something most never did. The moment people know there's money, the relationship changes. Relatives start calling, requests start flooding in. And slowly, the marriage suffers under pressure from outside. She wasn't going to let that happen. John watched how she handled everything, and fell deeper in love. They didn't buy a mansion, just a simple 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. No luxury cars, just a reliable SUV. Every evening they cooked together, laughed about her coworkers who still didn't believe she married an older white guy for love. They had their fights, like every couple. But they always came back to what mattered: honesty, teamwork, and peace. 2 years later, Clarice gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, and when the babies came, John cried. Not because he didn't think this life was possible, but because it had turned out better than he ever dared to dream. When the twins turned 4, Clarice brought up something she hadn't mentioned in a while. "I want to go home. Just to visit," she said one night, rocking their daughter to sleep. John smiled. "I was wondering when you'd say that." They planned it quietly, no big announcements, no teasing photos on social media. When their flight landed in Manila, Clarice's heart raced, not from fear, but from the anticipation of seeing her family again and showing them the life she built. But she didn't expect what came next. They didn't ride in a jeepney or hop on a tricycle. They stepped out of the airport and into a sleek black SUV John had rented, with a driver waiting, dressed in a sharp polo and clean slacks. As they pulled into her old neighborhood, kids playing in the streets stopped to stare. The gate to her family's modest home creaked open, and her mother stood at the door, speechless. Clarice stepped out first, then John, then the twins. The silence was thick until her youngest sister gasped, "Aid?" Clarice gave her mother a soft smile, and suddenly, tears. From her mother, her siblings, even her father, who had always tried to stay strong. They all hugged. Even John, awkwardly at first, until Clarice's father slapped him on the back and said, "You did good." But her mother? She stood back a moment longer, her eyes bouncing from the kids to the car to John's watch, which he had forgotten to switch out for his usual plain one. "I thought you said he was just simple," she said. Clarice looked her straight in the eye. "I never said he was poor, Ma. I just said he was honest." Her mother's eyes welled up again. This time, not from guilt, but from pride. "I was wrong," she whispered. "You chose well." They spent the next 2 weeks in the Philippines, visiting relatives, helping the local school, and treating her parents to dinner. Not at a fancy hotel, but at the same roadside eatery where Clarice used to order pancit and Coke for 40 Philippine pesos. And when it was time to leave, Clarice's mother pulled her aside. "I see now," she said. "It's not about the money. It's about how a man makes a woman feel safe and loved." Clarice smiled. Exactly. They've now been married 11 years. No scandals, no secrets, no regrets. Just a love story that began in the least expected way. A rich man hiding his wealth, and a principled bar girl guarding her heart. In the States, Clarice now runs a small accounting firm. Sharp, professional, admired by her peers. John still wears simple clothes, drives a normal car, and takes his coffee black at the same place every morning. They still laugh. They still argue. Usually about silly things like who left the fridge door open. And every now and then, they sit on the porch of their modest but beautiful home, watching their twins play, and John will say, "You remember that bar in Angela City?" Clarice will smirk. "You mean the one I didn't even want to talk to you at?" "Yeah, that one." And they'll both laugh, because it's hard to believe that's where it all began. John doesn't talk much about money anymore, not because he's hiding anything, but because with Clarice, it never really mattered. And maybe that's the secret. It wasn't about testing her. It wasn't about playing poor. It was about finding someone who saw the man first, not the bank account. And in a world where everyone seems to want something, Clarice just wanted to be respected. And that made all the difference. What do you think? Would you ever hide your wealth to test someone's love? Or do you think honesty from day one is the better path? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that real love can still exist, even in the most unexpected places. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!